here comes a twist. And that even failed. I couldn't understand a word of what he was saying. Purest art form, I love it. A Russian prostitute, a Russian spy. Got me to the advanced level. You're picking up some wisdom, you know what I'm saying? Hello everybody, welcome to our channel. My name is Lola, and here we're talking about the journey of learning English. And in this video, I will tell you about my journey of learning English from zero to native-like speaker. For the majority of ESL learners, I'm a native speaker, which I'm not. And sometimes I speak with an accent, sometimes I speak like an American speaker, like, oh my gosh, like that kind of girl, like who came from Valley and like really accentuates everything she says. But I will share my experience, how I got to the level that I'm at now. And maybe you can learn something from it. Because you constantly ask about that on my social media. Like, how many years did you learn English? How did you learn it? What did you do? Hey! So here's your answer. It all started in the 2nd grade. I grew up in Russia, and when I was 8 years old, I was going to a regular school. In America, we call it elementary school when we're a kid, and that's when the English learning process has begun. Okay, so it started in the 2nd grade, and at that time we would probably have one lesson a week, and it's a lesson in the class full of kids who are learning English and starting from alphabet. All I remember from that time, learning the basics of English in my elementary school, are the songs. We would sing a lot of songs like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P. So I would say throughout my elementary school and then middle school and then high school, I've learned the basics of English. Nowadays, you can pick up the basics of English just by watching YouTube videos or opening a mobile app. It's so easy nowadays. And what's important that at that time, we would have like, let's say, one lesson a week. It's 45 minutes in a classroom with 30 kids when you sometimes not even asked to speak the language. And speaking is so important. So if you think, oh yeah, of course, 10 years learning English at school, it's such a big amount, I will never get there. My friend, you can get there as fast as 1 month of watching regular videos on YouTube. So don't be afraid of that. Funny enough that the teachers that we had in school, they were nice people. All of them, they grew up and lived the majority of their life in Russia. And USSR, which was before Russia, was a closed country for many years. So people were not traveling freely. So nobody actually had this, feel for language, which now we can get easily by watching movies and content online. So all the teachers that I had, I'm very grateful to them, but I didn't get much useful knowledge. They're gonna kill me. I don't think they're gonna watch it. They don't even remember me, but but that's the truth. That's the truth. Okay, the point is, all these years in school, which I thought I was kind of learning English, I was getting some basics, but they were crumbs, almost nothing. And you can get there so fast nowadays, and you don't have to spend a lot of time thinking that you're learning language instead of really learning language. You know what I'm saying? You got my point? You know what I'm saying? And my parents kind of felt that. So when I was about 15 years old, they encouraged me to go and join the class to learn English. But once again, the teacher in that class was not a native speaker, neither a person who had ever lived in English-speaking country, neither a person who had the actual knowledge. It was a person who studied English from a book and who gave us a book, and we would open a book and read things, but useful thing. we started speaking with each other. Like that teacher encouraged us to have these mini dialogues. And speaking is so important, even if you're talking to another English learner, because you're practicing, your brain starts working. This simple thing of practicing speaking English, even bit by bit, in my opinion, got me from the basics to pre-intermediate, because at least I've tried pronouncing words and tried thinking on how to put the sentences together and kind of like try to communicate in English. So with these pre-intermediate level, I got into the university. My first degree, I was studying economics, the bachelor in economics. And throughout the study, we had a business English class, which was mandatory. Funny enough, I'm a good student. I have a lot of A's, but when I opened my graduation certificate, in Russia, 5 is the biggest grade that you can get. So recently, it happened like last year or 2 years ago when I was at my parents' home, at my home in Russia, and I opened the certificate and I saw that most of the classes I got 5, A, 5. And English class, I got 4. Like, just a few classes I had this horrible mark. And it's not a bad mark, it's just 4, not 5. And I had 4. And I've realized, at that time, I didn't like English. I didn't enjoy English. I didn't need it. In fact, I hated it. I thought, oh my God, this horrible business English, this business letters I will never use in my life. Like, Mr. Voronin, how are you doing? And other bull, which I thought, because I was always into like arts and creation, like I would never use it in my life. Why you're trying to teach me that? A joke is on me, right? And I got 4. So throughout that time in university, just by doing so, once again, it probably was 1 class a week, if not even 1 class in 2 weeks, where we would sit together with other people, 20 people in a room, and try to do the regular exercises that you could do anywhere online nowadays. By the way, a Murphy book, if you know Murphy is a cool grammar book, will get you to that level like so much faster. So now you see where I'm getting. I'm about 20 years old. I don't like English. I can't speak it, kinda-ish. Like you could say, oh, I've been learning English for 12 years in my life, starting 8 years old. But in fact, no, I was not learning English for 12 years of my life. I was having an occasional class on English language. And that amount of knowledge that I got in that period of time, 12 years, oh my God, I could have learned so many languages, but I didn't because I was not an efficient learner. I didn't approach right. The whole method of learning was random. Whatever came into my life, I would take. So I sucked. But here comes a twist in this story. At 22 years old, I think, or 23, I was 22 or 23, when I graduated from that university, and I've realized that I actually want to pursue a different career path. Not that I've ever wanted to pursue economics, but I really wanted to make my parents happy. So I've decided, okay, now when they're happy, they have the certificate. I shouldn't be crying here, but I'm laughing. So I decided now I want to study acting, and I wanted to study method acting in America. And what did I know? I knew that I needed English. I knew that I kind of had almost pre-intermediate kind of thing, but I didn't know much. I didn't have practice at all. And I needed to get to that level, like to the level where I could at least communicate with other human beings. So I got into the special class where first time in my life, I had a teacher who was a native speaker. And it was the first time in my life I talked to a native speaker, and I think he was an American guy. And the whole idea when I was like communicating with him and he would say something and I wanted to be speaking English at his level. Like I wanted just on the human level to be able to communicate so he could understand what I'm saying and I could understand each of his words. And it was an absolutely new experience because when you're learning with, let's say, a teacher who's not a native English speaker himself or herself, it sometimes can get you into this pattern of like, we're just saying things that we need to be saying instead of like really checking in with a real human, with the real experience. So I didn't have much time because I think I had a few months before I needed to go to America, and I did my best, but I think I was kind of at a weak intermediate level. That's what I thought. That's where I landed a plane and in 2012 moved to America thinking that I could, I have intermediate level of English, I could speak. Little did I know, I knew nothing. And the very first day at my institute, Lee Strasberg Theater and Film Institute, where the director of this institute tried to speak to me, I failed so badly. Not even failed. I couldn't understand a word of what he was saying to me. Like, I couldn't understand a word. And it was like, was it a question or it's like, should I answer? He was just, and that's where I was sitting and thinking, I failed, like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? And side note, like, I worked so hard to get to that point. I was saving money because I needed to get enough to pay for my education, to travel, like nobody was supporting me at that time, and not like anybody's supporting me now. Well, I guess my husband supports me. Anyways, so it was hard. And I was sitting there and realizing that probably if I will not change my English right now, I should just go back home because it just doesn't work. Everything that I knew was not working because I couldn't use the knowledge because the knowledge was not an actual knowledge. It was not applicable to real life. It was not applicable to real human beings. Like, I was trying to say words, but they would not understand it, or they would understand like couple words, but the other words, they're like, what is she trying to say? So why did it happen to me? Because I thought that I was learning the language. I was learning language, but I didn't have much practice. I didn't have practice at all, in fact. A lesson a week doesn't count. You need a regular practice. And because I didn't practice speaking English, I couldn't communicate. My ear was not exercised enough to recognize the words. We need to know the words and the grammar, but we also need to know how to pronounce these words so we can actually use them and not only have it like in the back of our brain. Like, oh, I kind of know it, but I could never say it. It doesn't work. Also, at that time, 2012, first time in my life, I've learned about accent training. I've learned that actually there are people who can help you to work on your accent. And I realized at that point that if I want to progress with my English, I need to work on my speech, on my accent, not for the sake of sounding great, even though that was very important. Everybody in industry would tell me, oh, she's a cool girl, like, but she has an accent. Like, she could only play a Russian prostitute or Russian spy. So, our videographer is cracking up. The coaches were expensive, and I realized that if I want to help myself, I kind of should come up with the practice. I should come up with the exercises that I could do on my own. Gladly, I was living in Los Angeles, so I had the opportunity to just go out and practice speaking, let's say at the store or at a bank. But I also needed to kind of, as in fitness, needed to find something that will help me to build my muscles, my speaking muscles. So I dove into the accent reduction world, which helped me to learn phonetics. And that, particularly that, helped to move my English first from intermediate to the upper intermediate level, and eventually from the upper intermediate level to the advanced. Funny enough, one of the biggest breakthrough that I felt I had this time in my life in LA when I was driving Uber. So side note, all the young actors in Hollywood, they have a side job. It's whether you're a waitress, a bartender, a nanny, or an Uber driver. Mine was an Uber driver. So when I started driving Uber, I started listening to a lot of people speaking English. Different people, different conversations, different types of accents, different types of speech. And my ear was filling with information. So your ear is full and your brain starts recognizing speech. So listening is very important. That's why, by the way, in our Lola Speak app, we have watch section where you could just jump in and watch Americans speak, explaining you simple, funny concepts as jokes, idioms, slang, and just by watching it, you're not wasting your time, you're filling your ear. And the more you watch, the more different people you watch, the better it is for you. Also, at that time, I was realizing that I needed to find the tools that would work for me personally, because not all the tools were working for me. And one of the exercises that really helped me is to be reading and listening at the same time. And I like to give this recommendation to people who asks me that if your brain is not there yet, and when you're not there when you're talking to a person and you don't understand half of the words he or she's saying. You should exercise your speaking and listening. And one of the exercises that helped me was reading a book and listening to the same book in my ears while reading it. So, doing speaking practice regularly, every day, exercising my listening ability got me to the advanced level. And then I realized a simple fact. If I want to become a completely confident speaker, I should not just learn some kind of language. I should learn a certain kind, and that was American language, because I was living in America at that time. And I've realized that I should switch on, full on, my kid mode. And what I mean by that, it means that I wanted to imitate a person. So I would pick up intonations, and I would pick up the patterns of like even gestures, and I would pick up the way people would say things, and I would repeat it, I would imitate them. And that was very, very helpful. And actually, if you were in the beginning of your journey, that's what I would recommend you doing. Don't try to be the smartest, like the most knowledgeable person about English language. Try to imitate, try to be a better actor at learning English. Just because by repeating words the way you've heard them said to you, you're kind of jumping on the same level with a person. And nowadays, I use this principle with Greek. Like literally, I know the word. For example, when you say thank you say "Ευχαριστώ πολύ," and this "πολύ" thing, I don't even know how to write it, but I say it exactly the way people would say it. And I know by using it that it means like I thank you a lot. So I use this principle and it works. All of that brought me to the point when in 2019, I was able to go and do comedy improv in English. And if you don't know what it is, it's the purest art form. I love it. When you improvise a scene with other people in English, of course, because it's in America. And it's tough because sometimes in a scene you got to react right away. You got to understand what the other person tries to do, you know, like which situation we try to play. And my level of language was enough for me to be able to do that. And it was a big personal achievement for me. After that, I was able to do musical improv, which is even cooler and even tougher because you need to be rhyming in English, improvising on the spot. And after that, I was even able to perform with our team until the COVID hit. And I would never be able to do that if I have left my English at the level that it was at. Very important to say, some people have a delusion thinking that just moving to another country will get you to an advanced level. Well, trust me, I've seen a lot of people who have lived for 20 years in America or in other English-speaking country, and they still could not speak freely. Why? Because they're not doing shit. But you're not one of them. You're watching this video, you're picking up some wisdom. So now I'm living not in English-speaking country. I'm living in Greek-speaking country. And I've noticed that my accent got worse because people around me, they either speak Greek or Russian or broken English. But I embrace this because that's the reality of my life nowadays. And I have this mechanism of imitating a person who I'm talking to because that helps me to communicate better, you know? Sometimes actually while traveling, I would switch on my broken English. If a person's speaking a broken English, that I switch on my broken English mode so the person could understand me. Because for some of the people, my accent is too American. They could not understand it, even though I still have a slight accent. So that was my story, my English learning journey. It continues. It never ends. Till that day, every day I check new words in the dictionary, I check the pronunciation of the words, and I make mistakes, and I listen back, and I get upset, and I learn to be better and stronger, because it's a journey. I wish you enjoy watching this video. If so, leave a comment below. Let us know which other topics you want me to talk to you about. Subscribe, share, have fun. Don't be harsh on yourself. Learn English and enjoy your journey.